Hi guys, welcome to my kitchen. I'm hungry for cookies. We're going to be making some Snickerdoodles today. These cookies are my all-time favorite cookie. It's the first thing I learned how to bake when I was younger. I think me and my dad made them at least every week. We always had fresh Snickerdoodles in the house, and I am ready to show you guys some little tricks here and there I picked up along the way and how to make my favorite cookie, the Snickerdoodle. So before I say Snickerdoodle one more time and go on for 10 years about why they're such a great cookie, let's get into it. So the first step I'm going to say is to definitely make sure you preheat your oven. For the Snickerdoodle cookies, we're going to be preheating our oven to 350 degrees, which I have already done. You want to make sure that your oven has adequate time to get up to the proper temperature. That way when your cookies are ready to go in the oven is ready for you. If the oven is at the wrong temperature, your cookies aren't going to bake at a right time and you're just not going to get the result that you want. So first thing we're going to do is grab our flour. For the Snickerdoodles, we're going to use 2 3/4 cups or 330 grams. When it comes to flour, you want to make sure you have the most accurate measurements as possible, which is why I usually prefer to use my kitchen scale and measure it out by weight. If you don't have a kitchen scale handy, you can use a measuring cup just fine. Just make sure instead of scooping the flour, you use a spoon and lightly fill it up with that spoon. When you get to the top, just use the back of a butter knife and scrape it so that it has a nice crisp edge and you can get the most accurate measurement possible. So to our flour mixture, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. We're going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And then we are going to be adding the cream of tartar. In this case, we're going to be using 1.5 teaspoons. You want to make sure that you definitely add the cream of tartar in there. That's what's going to be giving Snickerdoodles their unique taste. It is one of the most important ingredients in my opinion. Once you have all your dry ingredients in the same bowl, you're going to want to whisk them up. Definitely blend them all together as well as getting all the clumps broken up. There's nothing worse than biting into a cookie and there's just little balls of unmixed flour. It's also going to make the cookies bake unevenly. So just make sure that you just give it a good whisk, mixing in all of those other ingredients evenly. The next step we are going to be doing is adding our sugar to the bowl. So we're going to be adding 1.5 cups of sugar or 300 grams. Just like the flour, I prefer to measure out the sugar by weight. You don't have to do that, of course. You can do the same thing you would do with the flour with a volume measurement. Just scoop it in with a spoon and scrape off the top with the backhand of a butter knife to get a nice crisp, even measurement. After that, we're going to be adding 2 sticks of butter. Make sure that you are using real butter and make sure that it is unsalted. If you add margarine to the dough instead of real butter, you're just going to be adding a lot of unnatural ingredients, especially a lot of water, and your cookies just will not turn out exactly right. If you use salted butter, it's going to not give you the power to control the amount of salt in your recipe, and especially if you're already adding more salt, there's just going to be not a pleasant taste to your cookies. They're just going to be too salty. So now that we have our dry ingredients all mixed and we have our sugar and butter in our mixing bowl, we're going to be taking our paddle attachment and putting it on the bowl there. And we're going to be mixing this butter and sugar mixture for about 4 to 5 minutes on a medium-high speed to get it nice and combined and nice and fluffy. You want to incorporate a bunch of air into there so that it can give the body of the cookie that we want. You want to make sure as the butter and sugar is mixing on that high speed that every so often you stop it to make sure that you're scraping down those edges. That way you can make sure that it's all incorporating evenly and that there's nothing built up on the side of the bowl that isn't incorporating into that mixture. Now that it's been about 4 to 5 minutes, our butter mixture is nice and fluffy. It's a nice pale yellow. We know that it's time to add the next ingredients. So next we are going to be adding the eggs and the vanilla, and we're going to be adding those eggs in one at a time, making sure that we are mixing it properly and that everything is getting incorporated nice and evenly. Once the egg mixture is mixed in nicely, we are going to be adding in our vanilla Once the vanilla is mixed in, that's when we will finally add our dry ingredients. You want to make sure that you don't let the vanilla mixture whip for too long before you add those dry ingredients because it is at risk of evaporating out of the dough. We want to make sure we're adding that flour mixture nice and slowly so that it incorporates evenly, and periodically stopping and just scraping down the edges to make sure that also just mix it evenly. There's no butter like stuck on the sides. Alright, and we're just going to mix this until it is just combined. You don't want to overmix it and make a tough dough, just until it is combined. Now that our dough is made, everything is combined, we are going to get our dirty dishes out of the way, and we are going to get started on what makes the Snickerdoodle, personally to me, a classic Snickerdoodle. So we're going to get what I already pre-measured is a 1/4 cup of sugar. You don't have to weigh this, it doesn't have to be exact. All we're going to be doing is adding 1½ tablespoons of cinnamon to the mixture, stirring it up and rolling the dough into it before we place it on the tray and put it into the oven. Now that our dough is all mixed, we have our cinnamon sugar mixture ready. We're going to grab a baking sheet and we're going to line it with parchment paper. You can spray the bottom of the sheet with non-stick cooking spray. I personally like to use parchment paper just because it protects the bottom of the cookies from browning too fast, and it just guarantees that they're going to come off of that pan nice and easy when they come out of that oven. So if you're into baking cookies or into baking in general, highly invest keeping some parchment paper in your kitchen. So besides adding that parchment paper to your kitchen, I also recommend investing in a portion scoop. It's also kind of like an ice cream scoop, or you might have an ice cream scoop like this. I personally just like to use these for cookies because it makes sure that every single cookie is the same exact size. Otherwise, you can just use a regular spoon and grab the cookie dough and shape it in your hands. I'd say about a tablespoon in size, and just as long as you make sure every cookie is as close as you can get it in size, that way they all bake evenly, you'll be completely fine. But just something I really prefer to use. So the first thing we're going to do is grab that cookie dough, scrape it in there, and just plop it into our cinnamon sugar mixture. Just do a couple of them and just roll them around. Just make sure that every edge is completely coated. When you're done, it's gonna look kind of like this. Nice and coated in that cinnamon sugar mixture. Nice round shape, and just put it right onto the cookie sheet there. This is the part where you really want to make sure that you're not scared of getting your hands dirty, because you're going to have cinnamon sugar in every crevice of your hands, under your nails. It's just going to happen. But that's the price you pay for good cookies. Another thing is you definitely want to make sure that each cookie is spaced properly on your baking sheet. I'd say give it about 2 inches between cookies and from the edges, that way they have enough room to spread and they don't touch each other. If they do, it's not the end of the world, but they're just not going to look as nice. Just going to go ahead and get the rest of these cookies rolled out, and then we'll work on getting them into the oven. Now that our Snickerdoodles are perfectly rolled and covered in cinnamon sugar and placed nice and neatly onto our baking sheet lined with parchment paper, we're going to kindly ask our Alexa to set a timer for 8 minutes. Once that 8-minute timer goes off, we're going to check on the cookies. Usually they take about 9 to 11, but I like to cut it a little short. That way I can definitely keep an eye on how they're baking and control how I want them to be as much as possible. You're going to be looking for them to still be a little doughy feeling in the center, but you want to get that light brown golden crust going around the outside of the cookies. Now if you want them to be a little flatter, this would be the time that you pat them down. If you like them to have a more of a round shape, which I tend to prefer, just leave them like they are now.
So after 8 minutes, this is what we're left with. They're still obviously not quite done. So I'm going to put them in for another 2 minutes and see where we're at.
Alright, so our Snickerdoodles are finally out of the oven. I left them in for about 11 minutes. They got a little bit of a brownish color to the bottom of them, but nothing too dark. When you take them out, we are going to leave them on the cookie sheet for a little bit of time just to let them set a little bit longer, and while they're setting, they are going to continue to bake. So pull them out when they're just a little bit soft in the center and a little bit firm on the edges. Let them continue to bake on the sheet for a while and cool. And then once you're confident that they're not going to break when you take them off the sheet, that's when you're going to want to put them onto one of these cookie racks, these cooling racks, and let them fully set. So these ones are obviously fully set. I think they turned out really nicely. They're kind of uniform for the most part, but they're all baked nice and even. You see here you get that nice soft break. They're kind of hard on the edges, but they're nice and soft in the center. Like I said before, these are my favorite cookies. These will not last long in my household. If you like this video, please leave a like and comment down below if you tried out this recipe or any other questions that you have for me. And if you want to be notified of future videos, please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a great day.